running consultations myself. I have sought a briefing with Ben Ponton and his team. I've had one already. Quite frankly, I came away a little bit confused on sometimes and have made an appointment for another briefing with him and his team to clear up some uncertainties that I gained from the first briefing. And I also have a particular strong interest in some of the planning outcomes that are intended for Belconnen. I'm certainly aware of what was presented about the Gungahlin Town Centre and the motion that was, I spoke to my colleague, Mr. Braddock. I said, wow, that was a great motion. I nearly said here in the Assembly. And I meant that, Mr. Braddock, when I said it. And it was so disappointing to see that motion adjourned. Really, where I saw the sole purpose was to ask the government to hold off and have a reconsideration before the sale. Well, obviously that's been passed. So in my own electorate of Ginninderra, and this perhaps touches on what I see as an emerging planning policy from my office. I've been very active with the proposed Kipax development. And as some of you would know, that there's been a rezoning of some green space at the back of Kipax for the extension of the current shopping centre and refurbishment of the current shopping centre. What I think is actually a lost opportunity, and I haven't quite given up on that, is there was an early proposal for development at the front of the Kipax Centre one of the car park areas, to actually provide the same number of car parks in a protected environment and to leave the oval undeveloped. And why I mention that is something that I hope I've still got some voice on that, and I hope I can actually still have an influence to get that early proposal taken up. Because one of the things that I'm trying to do for my electorate of Ginninderra is where there's a green space, I want to keep it that way. I want to keep it that way because a green space is for the community, it's for schools, it's for sports. Quite frankly, from a climate strategy point of view, you want green spaces, you do not want heat banks. In terms of comfort of living and entertainment options, you want green spaces. Once they're gone, it will be very difficult to get them back. So for my own electorate, I am fighting for green spaces unless there's some exceptional reason it has to be used otherwise. I want to mention a nice little acronym to you, SMILE. So I saw a few smiles when I just said that. Support Melba inclusive learning environment. Along Verbrugen Street in Melba, and right behind the high school there is basically an abandoned play area that had hard surface netball, basketball, and it's plumbed. It was clearly a sporting and recreational area from way back. It's been totally let go, and there is a strong community push that I'm in full support of to redevelop that into a family-centric sports and recreational precinct. And SMILE, if you want to look it up on Facebook, get right behind it. As you, some of you would know, that the waste facility at West Belconnen along Parkwood Road, and I think, how many people here would take a trailer load to West Belconnen of trees and branches and things? Anyone? I know some of you are a bit far away, but Belconnen's a really leafy district. So that is a really highly used and well-regarded free green waste facility. You can dump a trailer load of green waste for nothing, and it's recycled. It's turned into valuable compost and other materials that can be used in landscaping, etc. And the lease on that ends at the end of this month, and there's a petition that I put up, sponsored, last Thursday afternoon, and I'm just going to, excuse me for looking at my phone, it has just crossed 1,500 signatures. in less than a week. So to see the Gungahlin petition get 650, that's a great achievement. You get over 500, it must be referred to a committee. I've got over 1,501 in less than a week. And so when Assembly reconvenes at the end of this month, that will be certainly something that I'll be presenting to the Assembly. And I'm hoping for 2,000 easy. By the way, if you're a resident of Canberra, you can go and sign that petition. It's available on the Legislative Assembly website. So otherwise, Canberra Sand and Gravel, the owners of who I've spoken to the owners, they're just going to shut their gates on the 30th of June. They're not even quite sure what they're meant to do with all of the green piles of green material that are there now, or whether they should just stop people coming there now so they can clean up. So there's a real uncertainty about how the government's been liaising with them, and they have presented some options for relocation in the same area to keep this wonderful service going for Belconnen, and I suggest for other parts of Canberra too. Otherwise, people are being told, and I asked the Minister for City Services, Chris Steele, what are you going to do for the citizens, particularly of Belconnen, in this space? One, well, people can get a green bin, a 40-litre green bin. There's a lot of trailer, that takes a lot of 40, there's a lot of 40 litres in a trailer load. And the green bins are restricted in terms of the length and the thickness of material you can put in them. Very restricted. Or you can go to Mitchell, which is got very, very small capacity for green waste disposal, a deposit at a fee as well at both the Canberra Sand and Gravel site and the Corkhill Brothers site, or drive to Mugger Lane, which is quite a distance. It's almost an hour and a half round trip from West Belconnen. So what I see as likely outcomes will be people will just throw their green waste in with their other rubbish and take to the Mitchell's station for landfill, and that's such a loss. That would be such a loss of valuable material, valuable organic material. I've also been very, very busy with many of the local shops in Ginninderra, and with proposals for play areas, for toilet blocks, for refurbishing and tidying, because there's a lot of concerns about some of the roads and footpaths in those shopping centres. And so I've actually been acting in the planning space quite naturally before I even got the portfolio. So I am meeting stakeholders. I'm meeting the community. I'm talking to the community. I don't meet many people at shops and door fronts who are happy with the planning outcomes in Canberra at the moment. They're not happy. And I'm going to develop some policies on behalf of the Canberra Liberals that I think strikes a better balance, that puts the focus on the community, not on development for development's sake. Look, I'm really happy to take some questions from you, either online, of course, or from the audience.
So, any question? Oh, one from Henley here.
Thanks, Peter, for coming down. We appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
And, effort. My question is why Liberals been very reactive rather than proactive, especially with the Gungahlin Town Centre petition. When the petition came first, it was utter silence for more than a week before they make any statement. And this petition is to stop the land sale, which we're talking about, about the Gungahlin Town Centre. I haven't seen any active posting on the Facebook. I haven't seen any media releases until the motion got into the Assembly. So I'm just curious, do you guys have a plan for Gungahlin Town Centre? And if so, what's the plan and why it's kind of a reactive rather than being proactive?
Well, firstly, our party room decision was that the local Liberal members would be the voice on this particular petition, as opposed to like a broader planning spokesperson being me. So I know Leanne Castley and James Milligan both spoke in the Assembly at the last sitting and the one previous to that about the petition, and really the disappointment that it was adjourned, which really, quite frankly, defeated the main point of the petition, and that is petitioning the government to hold off the sale. So I would respectfully disagree that we didn't really do anything. It was spoken of in the Assembly in 2 separate sittings.
Yeah, but we have to wait till the assemblies were, in 2 weeks' time. But during that first week of the petition, if I'm in the opposition party, I'll be running up and down. I would be ringing Gungahlin Community Council to see how can we help you and what's going on. So from my perspective, it'd be good if there's an active participation, active engagement. They're saying, okay, looks like there's a petition. How can we help you? What's happening? How can we help you to stop these things, or, come up with the development strategies and those kind of things. So that's the disappointment. But I do agree on the Legislative Assembly, you made the voice and stuff, but it was kind of a reactive approach rather than the proactive approach. That's what I want to bring it to your attention while you are here.
Thank you. Look, what I will do is pass this on as a comment and a suggestion and a criticism as well. Can I say that when something happens in the Assembly, for a party room to get together and form a view on what to do in the next week, that's not probably that common, because we do like to think about, one, what do we feel about the motion itself? Two, do we have what's our role in dealing with that? And frankly, when the petition was presented, there really wasn't much other time before we were actually being very vocal, particularly through our 2 local members, Leanne Castley and James Milligan. So I probably disagree with you in the sense of it didn't look like we were doing anything. I thought we did. Anything can happen faster, if you know what I mean. So I take your comment and criticism, and I'll pass that on. Yeah, and my follow-up question was what else the plan you have for Gungahlin, and what do you think about this motion, and do you think, is it getting diluted, or, or can we make the government accountable for, selling the lands in the proper way, and making sure that we get more commercial space in Gungahlin Town Centre? The motion was obviously diluted just by its being adjourned, because then the date for the sale had passed and the blocks were sold. Whereas the motion primarily was to say, let's hold off on this and give thought to what you just said. Do we have a plan for Gungahlin Town Centre? Yes. Can I tell you what it is right now in detail? No. But, and again, that's something I would be talking to as shadow planning with the local members as well, to kind of, as the voices for this constituency. So I can't answer your question at length at the moment. Okay. Yeah. All right. No Except worries. That Gungahlin deserves more business components in planning outcomes. I know that much, and I think that's what the community would like to see, which really was at the heart, the policy driver behind this motion. Which, like I said, I seriously, I said, that was great. I was really behind what Mr. Braddock was doing, and then the main point of it was actually lost in the adjournment motion, which was supported by Labor and Green.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so just let's not have too many questions here, because we are running out of time.
Okay. I just wanted to thank you for actually coming to the Gungahlin Community Council.
Thank you.
And coming here. We've had some difficulty trying to get...
Can't hear you. Yeah.
We've had some difficulty trying to get a gentleman to come to the Gungahlin Community Council. As you've probably heard in the Legislative Assembly, do you think that the decisions that were brought forward, even though it may not have been 100% what we would have liked with those blocks not sold, but do you think that there's been some progress on this, and do you think that the Liberal Party and in your portfolio that there's some room in future to sort of work with us in order to get better favourable outcomes for what you've seen in our presentation today, which is about preservation of that office core precinct?
Sure.
And that before DV 364 was brought forward, that whole area, there was no residential that was allowed in that area, and that we feel that a decision was made at some stage in the past in order to preserve it and put that ruling in there. And I'm just curious about your thoughts about going forward, what your thoughts might be about working with us in order to do what we can in order to preserve that area.
Well, I think all local members and the relevant shadow portfolio should be engaging pretty regularly with the district councils. I mean, I'm actually a member of Gungahlin Community Council, was before I got into politics. And yes, I'll certainly pass on your sort of thought to our local members, and also in terms, much of what I suspect you consider has a planning connection by the sound of it. So the answer is yes. Of course, we're concerned about what's happening in Gungahlin and planning outcomes. Like I said, it is pretty early days for me since Alistair Coe left to sort of take on the portfolio, and I'm still getting the benefit of briefings from the Minister's office. And as far as Mr. Gentleman's concerned, I've invited him to come and tour Belconnen with me, because I've got some really serious concerns about Belconnen's planning outcomes. I have yet to receive a response to that invitation, but
We're not surprised.
well, I think you should expect the best. Who knows?
Sorry,
Who knows?
Any questions in our audience here? No? All right. Pete, again, I'd
thank
also
you.
extend my thanks for you to coming out this evening. It's always good to see our MLAs not only here in Yerrabee, and we're lucky that we've had a lot of engagement with all of our MLAs.
Sure, that's great.
Including Leanne and James in this term of government. So we're very encouraged by that. So it's great to see you. So thanks very much.
Pleasure.
All right. So when I first spoke to the team from the Suburban Land Agency,
I'll let you take that off.
when we talked about where in the agenda the SLA team would speak, and they've ended up at the end of the line just to deal with the actual real work of getting stuff done. So it's my great pleasure to invite Dave Thornhill up, and I'll get his PowerPoint slides up so he can talk to us about everything else that we've already talked about tonight, and about the community engagement for Taylor and Moncrief.
We're good?
Yeah,
Hearing okay? Yeah. Hello everyone in the room, hello everyone at home. As Peter said, my name's David Thornhill and I'm from Suburban Land Agency, and I have a role there of having kind of oversight of all the greenfield development works that we undertake. So we're here tonight to talk about the Moncrief and Taylor engagement activities that we're doing, and there's been a bit of talk already tonight about engagement and what the engagement the Suburban Land Agency will do with the Gungahlin Town Centre sites. And so I think before I introduce Harley McNamara from Communications Link and May Yumi Piper from Suburban Land Agency, I think I'll just quickly touch on the Gungahlin Town Centre, what's happened there and what the Suburban Land Agency is committed to do with the Gungahlin Community Council and the wider Gungahlin community. Click. Yep. Okay, so what we know, and we've kind of been through this already quickly with Peter's explanation of the planning process, which I thought, Peter, was very good and informative. I thought that was great. So yes, the Gungahlin Community Council wrote to the ministers, the SLA, to postpone the auction. A number of meetings were held with the ministers, the executive committee of the Gungahlin Community Council and the SLA. The ACT government made the commitment to continue with the auction as it was advertised. And as been mentioned before, that did bring 76 affordable dwellings to be released, along with some public housing dwellings, and also over 450 other residential dwellings as well. In that meetings and that happened in relation to the petition and the motion to postpone it, the SLA did amend the sales conditions. So we amended the sales conditions to include a mandatory referral to the National Capital Design Review Panel. So it's a mandatory referral sometimes of dwellings and buildings that are over a certain height, but these ones here possibly wouldn't trigger that height requirement. So we made it a mandatory referral that they had to do that. So that National Capital Design Review Panel is a panel of government that has a number, I think it's 10 or 12 principles that developments must go through on a way to delivering best practice urban design. And then I think what's the most important thing that we kind of made the commitment through, and my Chief Executive Officer, John Dietz, made that commitment, has provided that in writing back to the committee, is to come back and work with the Gungahlin Community Council and the wider Gungahlin area on how future sites in the Gungahlin Town Centre can be released. So that is something that we are committed to do. Next slide, please. So what will we be doing? So yeah, we're at the kind of start of the journey with the SLA. So we made that commitment that we would come back. So in the next couple of months, we'll be going through engaging communications companies, engagement companies, planners and placemaking companies, and coming up with some engagement strategies and activities. We'll be possibly coming back to the Gungahlin Community Council to help inform those activities and what types of engagement activities do we want to do. Kind of similar to what we've done with the ones that we'll be chatting about here with Moncrief and Taylor, where we've come through and we had an idea of what we wanted to do with some pop-ups and some drop-in sessions and a Your Say survey and door knocking activities, and we discussed whether we thought they would be beneficial, if there are any other options, and tailoring the engagement strategies to ensure that we actually do cover off on all people in the community and not just people that have certain access to certain materials. We'll be involved in the Gungahlin Community Council as a key stakeholder, and we'll be reporting back to the committee and the wider community as how we go with those engagement activities. So that will help us inform how we bring those sites to the market, which I think there was a slide, I forget which speaker had it on tonight, where we're talking about not just releasing sites for the highest value, seeing what the community input into it and releasing sites accordingly to those ones there. And also that was touched on, I think it was with Andrew Braddock's presentation, the indicative land release program. When that is published, we're more than happy to come back and talk to the council and the wider Gungahlin community on how the SLA will be delivering those land sale sites that are put in that land release program. The Suburban Land Agency is the delivery arm of the ACT government, so we don't set the land release program. We're charged with delivering the land release program. So once that is published through the budget process, we will be able to look at that, work out our release strategies for the coming year, work out which sites, in the Gungahlin Town Centre. Yes, we'll be coming and doing the consultation, but whether there's other key sites in the Gungahlin region as well that we'll be wanting to engage more with the community, like we did when we got the land release program for these sites with Taylor and Moncrief. We thought we'd do some more engagement with the community on that one. So I think the next one's going straight into the engagement activities. Yep. So what we have here, we're releasing shortly some cracker sites in kind of North Gungahlin. We've got the Moncrief Group Centre and the Taylor Local Centre. So talking about engagement, we went out and we've engaged Harley McNamara from Communications Link to run through an engagement strategy, and over the next 2 months we're going out doing a number of engagement opportunities. And so I'll hand over to Harley and Mayumi to give a bit of a presentation on what we're doing there. So I think we're going to have to pass that around.
Oh, beautiful. Excellent.
Yep. All right.
Great. Thank you. I'll be really quick. Communication Link, the company I'm with, was engaged by the Suburban Land Agency earlier this year to undertake the consultation work. We're an independent consultancy firm that deals very much with community and stakeholder engagement. We have a background that extends over 20 years in that. We've worked with the SLA on a number of projects, and we're excited to be involved with this one because it's fairly significant, and already the engagement we've had has demonstrated that people are keen to have a say. Look, in short, I'll just give you a very quick briefing on what we've done so far. So we met with the Gungahlin Community Council committee back a little over a month ago and had a bit of a chat about what and how we should engage the Gungahlin community. We took that advice on board, and that kind of helped us shape our engagement plan. So in short, That engagement plan looks as follows. So we've got 2 community workshops, 2 pop-ups which are going to be in the local area. One's already taken place, as well as door knocking the local residents, attending this meeting, of course, and a survey via the Your Say website. Now we've had our first pop-up and the engagement was great. We met with 22 people. We got 14 pieces of feedback from that. We've got some really interesting bits of information, which I'll pass, which Naomi will talk a little bit about. We're going to door knock once the weather's a little bit better. So our team was scheduled to go out today and tomorrow to do door knocking, but we decided to just hold off on the door knocking today and tomorrow because it's just going to be a little bit chilly. Yep. Excellent. Okay, cool. Now, the Your Say survey. So the Your Say survey went live on Friday. It's there. Please do fill it out. We've had over 100 people already fill it out. So we would encourage you to do that. So every bit of data we get from that survey, there's closed and open questions there. So there's an opportunity to put some open words if you like. So it's not too constrained. So we do recommend do that. Community workshops, again, I highly recommend coming along to because it's an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper in your thoughts and just collaborate with other fellow community members about your ideas. We have great fun in our community workshops because it's an opportunity to just explore it in a bit more of a creative manner. We ask people to move around and we use worksheets and butcher's paper and sticky notes and we can get some fantastic ideas. So there's 2 of those taking place, I should say, the community workshops. So there's one on a Saturday and one on a Thursday night. So there's they're both the same. There's just 2 different time schedules to make it as flexible as possible. And as well as the pop-up that we had on Saturday just gone, we've got another one taking place on Saturday the 24th at Moncrief Park. There'll be a coffee van there. We'll be there and we'll take some feedback. We can provide you with some extra information, etc. And that's really about it in terms of what we're engaging. I wanted to just touch really briefly on what we're asking. So it's there's no right or wrong answer. Broadly speaking, we're asking people what they feel about the sites, what they know about the sites. From the local community, we want to know, sometimes it's the little things, the little bits of information they can give us about the existing surrounding environment that help us shape the information. We have asked them what they may like to see in these commercial sites, and that's really just as a guide. And it will help prepare the information that goes on to future tenderers and developers for those sites, and just sort of help shape any sales documents that go ahead with that. But like I said, no right or wrong answer, but we want that local information. We want people to tell us, the shape and scale and size, where they might prefer to have the car park, where they might prefer to have the egress and access, thoughts on how it connects with public transport, all those little things. Yes, there's heaps of data, obviously, that we already have with traffic studies and population studies and all those different things, but it's the little bits that we get from the community that really help us with those bits of information. And every time we get something from if it's a quick interview at a pop-up, or it's a survey, or it's an email, all that data gets recorded. We've got a great team that analyses it, categorises it, and we'll put it in a report and send it and submit it to the Suburban Land Agency. So here's what the community feels, and we may make some recommendations about how they move forward with the advice for the tenderers. I'll hand over to Naomi. You can talk a bit more.
Thank you. So in preparing for tonight, we want to just give you a bit of a feel for what actually came through so far in those 106 surveys, and some of the feedback that we did receive at the Hindu Mandir groundbreaking event that was held on the weekend. And it's really good because we've only been 5 days active for this engagement, but already there's been some really good feedback. It's probably no surprise to the council that we've already heard about parking and traffic. A lot of the people that we've spoken to on the weekend talked about coffee shops, restaurants, pharmacies, A really good idea came forward in terms of a fresh food market. Very keen to see that at some of the sites. They're also talking about the stories in terms of the height of the building, and also talking about open space, and the fact too that the sites are actually adjacent to some cultural places of worship. So there was also mention of liquor stores and how that would have an impact if they were to open up on those sites. So as Harley alluded to, we do have a lot of things coming up soon. We have the pop-ups, we've got the workshops, but please don't feel that that's confined to those face-to-face engagement activities. On the Your Say website, we have a phone number. I'm happy to receive personal calls. I had a chat to a lovely lady yesterday from Moncrief, and also happy to receive emails as well. And if there is a big appetite for that engagement at the workshops, we're happy to even look at hosting further workshops, just so that we can really get that genuine engagement, all the feedback, and make sure that at the end of the day, this is all the consultation that comes back from Gungahlin.
I can do this one.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, guys. So, talking just on the program and just kind of moving through, indicative program subject to change and conditions of what happens, but this is roughly what we're moving through. We're undertaking the community engagement for this 8-week period through June and July. We're noting it is through a school holiday period, so we've extended it a couple of weeks to make sure we have a good time out there in the market. We will be releasing in June these sites for an expression of interest. So what this is doing is just going out there to seek some market responses, and we're looking at things in this and to come back to participate in the next stage in the tender. So we're looking at things in this expression of interest on who has experience in delivering sites like this before, who has delivered, group centre sites, who has delivered local centre sites, and what is their expertise in relation to doing this. We're then going to close the consultation. As I said, we will get some feedback from the community on what they're wanting these sites to be. Going on from what Harley was saying, some of these people might be liking seeing these sites as their convenience shopping or maybe their weekly shopping, so that might actually influence how we actually release these sites to the market. If people are looking at, they might be using these instead of coming to the Gungahlin Town Centre or instead of going to Casey or Amaroo, that might influence how we put it to the market. If they're just wanting to just use it for convenience, pop in, pop out. So we need to get that feedback to go into our sales documentation. Do they want, at-grade car parking or subterranean car parking, open space requirements? That stuff will then form part of our tender documentation that we will then go to the people that we've already kind of shortlisted that have the experience in developing this to respond to in their request for tender. So we would hope to have that request for tender released in that September-October period. That would then close towards the end of the calendar year this year, and then do an assessment and have an announcement in 2022 when we'd have to hopefully have some great developers on board that will deliver the Moncrief Group Centre and the Taylor Local Centre. I think that's the next one is thank you and questions. I think we might have
inevitable online questions.
Yep.
We have a real life, in-life question, so we'll go for that. Maybe Kevin?
Two questions. First one is, if you guys don't set the land release program and planning doesn't set the land release program, who sets it?
So my understanding is that the land release program is championed by EPSDD, so planning champion prepare the documentation for the land release program, but it goes to Cabinet and to actually approve the land release program.
So it's EPSD who puts it up first?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Right.
And then the Suburban Land Agency is charged with the delivery of the program.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Now the question about the Moncrief one. So you're doing all this consultation, that's great, really great. How much does that inform the developers? How much importance does what the community say have for what the developers actually do?
So I suppose it does depend on what the feedback comes back from the community, and then how we use that information in our sales documentation that we go out with. So there's a number of ways that we kind of go about it. The Gold Creek example, which I think is well known. We have which I don't know that much about. It was the other side of the business that had that. But I do know, like, we have these things kind of called concept delivery deeds, project delivery agreements that we can put into our sales conditions that require the developer to do certain things, and there are certain checkpoints along the way that the SLA or whatever authority kind of sign off on to make sure that that is actually delivered. So we could have a requirement there. The community say that they want underground car parking, not at grade car parking, and they're happy to do that because they will sacrifice something because of that. We could put that into the sales conditions, so when we release it, that there's a requirement that the development application for this gets endorsed by the Suburban Land Agency before it gets submitted. And we would only endorse that development application if the development application was part of, was as that community feedback. But we're hoping to go through the tender process so we can actually see, we get the number of submissions in, and we can actually then see how that actually works, and then actually, maybe we bind that the tender information into the sales documentation to make sure that they actually deliver against what they tendered for the site.
Yep, just hang up. Stand by.
So that means the office core that we currently have,
Yep.
if you put that to the public and the community want that to remain as office or business, then it would be the SLA's job to find someone to buy that. Is that?
So
Is that what
in
you're
the
sort of
town
saying?
centre now.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. So in the town centre, it would all be in
Because
the
that is currently commercial.
yeah, it would
just
all
like-
be in the constraints of the territory plan. So we couldn't actually propose anything that's outside the territory plan. But if that is some of the feedback that comes back, that is what they are wanting, we will then work out what's the best delivery method for this.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it an expression of interest? Is it a direct approach? Is it an auction with conditions that these certain things have to be done?
Okay, so how come that hasn't happened in the past? Because, our commercial land has been reduced, even though the public hasn't wanted the mixed use.
So we have kind of done it in the past. Like, I think this site here was put out for the requirement for a club to be established on this site.
But this was always commercial.
Yeah,
The
and
zoning.
so do you mean the ones that we just sold in May?
Yeah, so well, just any of the ones that have been changed to mixed use.
So we haven't. I don't think we've released any of the ones that have been changed to mixed use
But
under
in the past, like, yeah.
Look, I can't comment on the business park. It was before my time involvement in
No,
the.
but I'm saying if you're going to do all this consultation for Moncrief and Taylor.
This is what we're proposing to do for the Gungahlin Town Centre as well.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yep.
So any other questions here, or we just go to a couple online ones, or no online ones? Yeah, there's some. Okay, some, whatever.
So there's 3 questions online from Mazzy. It's why did the SLA proceed with the sale of the 4 blocks when they knew about the petition?
So the SLA, was informed by government to proceed for the sale of those 4 blocks. As we said, there was a petition, there was a motion, there was a number of meetings that were had between the council and the ministers, and the Gungahlin Community Council and the various ministers, and the direction came from government to proceed with those sale sites.
The next question is, what guarantees is there that the remaining office core precinct blocks will be reserved for the intended purpose of office and business use?
I don't think I can really comment on those guarantees. As I said, the Suburban Land Agency is tasked with delivering the land release program. We've already discussed that the draft variation and the planning motions are the responsibility of the Planning Directorate and EPSDD.
And the third one was, how will future community consultation be conducted compared to other flawed attempts, e.g.
Same one as before,
DV364?
yeah. So again, as what was said before, that that consultation was undertaken by EPSDD, the Suburban Land Agency. Possibly, I'm not aware of their consultation approach that EPSDD took with DV364, but no, the Suburban Land Agency has undertaken our consultation for Gold Creek, which was well received. We've undertaken ones down in the Molonglo Valley for some significant sites there, and we're undertaking these ones here, and hopefully some of the information of how we presented this and the pop-ups and all that provide some confidence to the wider Gungahlin community.
Okay.
I'll just throw in a quick comment on if there are people who have a view on DV364 and its proposal to reduce the amount of commercial office space, they should put a submission in as part of the planning standing committee onto planning and say, don't proceed with DV364. That would be a very good start, for example, if that's what they think. So strongly encourage people to put a submission in. It's very unstructured. You just literally send in an email or provide your feedback. It's not even a questionnaire to answer. So it's very easy to respond to. You just have your say. One more.
Thanks for coming down tonight.
No worries, Emily.
Just for my understanding, so those 4 blocks, right? So it's all meant to be a mixed use.
They're all zone,
Yeah.
CZ5 mixed
Yeah.
use, which is predominantly residential,
Yeah.
high density residential with a
Yeah.
mixture of business options.
But,
Yep.
but it has changed completely. 2 of them has been sold to the college, which I like it. But if SLA did any amendments to it? Or?
No. So that's something that I think was alluded to before. That's the intent of what the developer has bought. That I believe that an education facility is still a permitted use in that zoning. So the developer there will have to go through the process to deliver that along with the requirements of the lease that stipulated some dwellings and some affordable housing requirements.
Because on the sales document, it was saying purely it's got to be residential.
Yeah, this gets into those number of slides that Peter presented when we're talking about the zone objectives and what's permitted and not permitted uses in the territory plan. Yeah. So even though it said residential, there's a number of other permitted uses in it.
Because on the sales document, I think we had a third party or someone who was doing sales for you, like some.
Yeah, so Suburban Land Agency engaged a sales agent to undertake.
So the sales agent doesn't have some kind of thing. So, I appreciate what we achieved at the end, but what I'm trying to say, if something can change just like that, what's the guarantee of the future lands? If you know what I mean, like where I'm coming, if something can change without anything, any consultation or anything, but if something can change just like that, what's the guarantee that nothing would change in future?
I don't think it changed just like that. It was always a permitted use under the lease and the zoning of the objectives. It's just that developer that bought that obviously saw the opportunity, to expand their footprint and operations. I think they're in the inner north and Belconnen or something at the moment to come in here. So they saw that there was a permitted use that was available to use on that site. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
It's the background of that question is, a lot of blocks were bought by developers when the blocks were clearly intended to be part of an office park. And what's happened is those developers come back and said, we'd like to change our lease or a whole bunch of the other conditions specified in the code, and those development applications have been approved. Now, that's not a function that sits inside the SLA. That's yet another function inside the planning directorate. And part of the problem is the current system says if you, as a developer, tick all these boxes, then your application's approved, even if it's a bad application. And that's part of what, in theory, the new planning system's going to address. But yeah, it's a real problem, right? So the mixed-use development proposed just to the east of this, where we are right now, most of the DA is a big change to the lease clauses, because currently the only thing you can build on this block, whether it's here or on the next portion of the block, is a club, and they're proposing a mixed use residential with a small number of commercial tenancies. So part of their development application is a lease variation to allow them to build what they want. And so, you know, people who didn't want that to happen needed to say, I don't think this development application should proceed, which is what the Community Council said. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with that development application. It's still being assessed. So.
Because I think
But there is, you know, it's not surprising the community aren't confident that some of these processes will actually work.
I think that my understanding is with the leasehold system that we have, everyone who has the lease has the right to vary their lease. And so they have to obviously go through the right checks and balances to do that. And then there is the requirement of, people to put in objections or support for that. So, you know, there's no real 100% guarantee because anyone can make any decision of what they want to do. There's just a number of checks and balances and processes we can put in place to try to get the outcome. But you know, it does come down to the individual people that are actually developing the sites to make that final determination.
All right, last roll of the dice. It's getting late. We're into the first half.
When those fuller blocks were sold, there were some extra conditions that were put there about going through the National Capital
Design
Authority.
Review Panel.
Yeah, can you explain maybe a little bit about what that additional
requirement is?
Means and.
The best thing I can, but I'm not an expert, but if you Google National Capital Design Review Panel in Google, it will come up with what the design review panel is. I believe there's 10 or 12 principles that have been benchmarked against best practice design principles in the ACT and New Zealand, and with a proposal that goes to it, they have to present to it. They get the comments back from the National Capital Design Review Panel. They then need to address those comments and provide that submission in with their development application to be considered by the Planning Authority. So it's an arm's length from the Suburban Land Agency. I think it's an independent panel. I believe there's numerous members on it, and when the proposal comes through, the chair or the secretariat determines which members of the panel will sit on to look at it to assess and provide feedback. But there's pretty good documentation on the webpage about the principles and how they address it.
It's a good question, though. All right, well, it is late. Thank you, Dave and team, for coming in. It's good to see some of these processes getting a bit of airtime, and it's good to see that people and residents are actually getting involved and engaged in the early feedback that you had. And hopefully the other consultations you have won't be as cold as that evening in the brown grating for the Hindu temple, because it was cold that morning as well. Yeah. So thank you again, Dave.
No, thank you all.
All right. So on that note, I'll call it. Yeah, thank you guys. Good update. Thank you again for coming along tonight. Drive safely on the way home, and we'll of course be back here in July. Don't forget, lots happening. Sign the petition if you haven't signed the petition. Think about getting a submission into the draft variation 364 consultation, and if you've got some thoughts on budget submission for the Gungahlin community, please get them into us via all the usual mechanisms. Thanks very much. Good night. See you in July.